It's the fighters and believers who change our world. They said that working people were not fit to govern, so we formed the Labour Party. When they told us that women didn't deserve the vote, we fought and won. They said the son of a miner could never become a minister. But no one told Nye Bevan. At one time, it seemed impossible to stop the tide of fascism, until Cable Street and a few good men and women got in the way. The bright, shining vision of a National Health Service was for many an impossible dream, until we created it. They said we were wasting our time making a stand against apartheid, and that things would never change. But they did. Rights for workers, Sure Start, the minimum wage, cancelling debt for developing countries, all had to be won. The history of Britain is the story of fighting for the right thing against the odds. Sir Alex lifting the cup, Dame Tanny reaching for the line, J.K. Rowling opening rejection letters from her bedsit in Edinburgh, the dream to bring the pleasure of reading to our children. So here's to the fighters, the true Brits, the ones who never gave up, who came from behind to win the day. Sharing the same commitment, we can succeed, because we must.
It's always an honour, as Chair of the National Executive, to introduce our Prime Minister. But today I'm delighted to welcome someone else first. She made her conference debut last year, and she was such a success, we asked her to come back. Conference, please welcome Sarah Brown.
Friends, it's my pleasure to be introducing a video where you'll hear some of the other people who know Gordon well. Now, I don't know as much about economics as a guru like Joe Stiglitz, and I don't know as much about the environment as an expert like Sir Nicholas Stern, but I do know a lot about my husband. Gordon and I have been married for 9 years now. We've seen each other through some tough times. I had some great times, and we'll be together for all times. And because we've been together for so long, I know he's not a saint. He's messy, he's noisy, he gets up at a terrible hour, but I know that he wakes up every morning and goes to bed every evening thinking about the things that matter. I know he loves our country, and I know he will always, always put you first. I met Gordon. I was struck how somebody so intense and so intelligent could be so gentle, could ask so many questions, could really care. He will always make the time for people, for our family, for his friends, for anyone who needs him. And that's part of the reason why I love him as much as I do. And you know, friends, that is what makes him the man for Britain too. Gordon has got a tough job. I wouldn't want it for the world. But each day I'm thankful that he's the one who has it, that he's the one choosing the policies and making the calls. Because I've seen what a Prime Minister's day is like, up close. I've seen how Gordon and his ministers have to square up to big choices, huge challenges, serious times, and I've seen what can happen as a result of the changes government make. One of the great privileges of being married to Gordon is that so many of you are so generous with your time with us. So many of you have invited us into your homes and workplaces and into the heart of your local communities. You've been so kind to us both, and it has been an honour to hear your stories. Thank you for letting us into your lives, and thank you for giving Gordon the chance to change so many lives. We've just seen a video about how Labour governments have always made this country better as a result of their work. This video shows you a little of how Gordon's government is doing that today.
We need someone who's got the ideas and the courage to lead Britain, and you can't have someone like Cameron.
I'm really pleased that the government has now introduced the option of paternity leave.
Keeping investment in frontline services.
Building schools for the future.
I think it's important that we have Gordon Brown to lead Britain.
Gordon Brown.
Gordon Brown, without a doubt.
Gordon Brown has been recognising that climate change and overcoming poverty, and explaining this strongly, are the two defining challenges of our century.
I'm here to say really thank you to Gordon Brown.
Gordon Brown's response to the global economic crisis exhibited real leadership in moving the world into a new global framework, the G20.
The IMF has separately said that the London summit broke the fall. That's what leadership is all about, forging the hard decisions at times of crisis.
And keep on wishing. Remember your dream is your only scheme, so keep on pushing.
The Labour Party has always been at its best when it's defending what it really believes in. What we believe in is a national health service that is properly financed. What we believe in are schools and proper education for every single child, not just a few children. And what we believe in are coming to the aid of people in need.
Gordon Brown's achievement and development is staggering, from when he was finance minister right through to Prime Minister, and people don't know. They just don't know. There's an extra 34 million children going to school in Africa, for instance.
I recall appearing with him at St. Paul's Cathedral in London to talk about poverty and the need to help the poor. He was so passionate about it. I recall even turning on him and saying, well, you have to be careful to appear in a church with a pastor's son.
Right now, with globalization, the world is changing, and so you need leaders that are going to prepare the West for this change.
It's because we believe in these things, and because this is a test, not just of us as people, but a test of our values, that the Labour Party will be fighting every inch of the way to get every vote that we can in the country.
It is that kind of leadership, that kind of solidarity that we need in today's world.
I always judge a man by his wife, and I have to say Gordon chose very well when he chose Sarah.
And I salute you, Gordon, not only as a decent human being, not only as a true friend, but also as someone who has shown himself to be a truly global leader.
It is what makes Britain great.
So friends, let me introduce to you my husband, my hero, the leader of our Labour Party, Prime Minister Gordon Brown.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. You know, friends, it is the fighters and believers who change the world. We've changed the world before, and we're going to change the world again. And you know, our country faces the biggest choice for a generation. So we need to fight. Not bow out, not walk away, not give in, not give up, but fight. Fight to win for Britain. You know, because if anyone says that to fight doesn't get you anywhere, that politics can't make a difference, that all parties are the same, then look at what we have achieved together since 1997. The winter fuel allowance, the shortest waiting times in history, crime down by a third, the creation of Sure Start, the cancer guarantee, record results in schools, more students than ever, the Disability Discrimination Act, devolution, civil partnerships, peace in Northern Ireland, the social chapter, 500,000 children out of poverty, maternity pay, paternity leave, child benefit at record levels, the minimum wage, the ban on cluster bombs, the cancelling of debt, the trebling of aid, the first ever Climate Change Act. That's the Britain we've been building together. That's the change we choose. Over and over again, we've seen what can happen when we stand up for what we believe. So let me begin today by thanking my constant friend and brilliant Deputy Leader, Harriet Harman. Harriet, your equality bill will change Britain for the better and forever. From my heart, thank you for what you do. And we will back you in the second task you've taken on, to ensure there is no place for the British National Party in the democratic politics of our country. Of course, it's been a difficult year. I know from my own experience how tough it is to be Chancellor. Alistair, you are doing an absolutely brilliant job. You know, I'd say you were the best Chancellor the country ever had. But the press would probably report it as Brown snubs Brown. You know, I'm just back from America, and people have been asking me, what's happening to the special relationship? And I say, Peter Mandelson and I are getting on just fine. And Peter, the Labour Party has really learned to love you. Thank you for what you do. And so today, in the midst of events that are transforming our world, we meet united and determined to fight for the future. You know, our country confronts the biggest choice for a generation. Yeah, it's a choice between two parties, but more importantly, it's a choice between two directions for our country. In the last 18 months, we've had to confront the biggest economic choices the world has faced since the 1930s. Just remember, it was only a year ago that the world was looking over a precipice and Britain was in danger. And I knew that unless I acted decisively and immediately, the recession could descend into a Great Depression with millions of people's jobs, homes and savings at risk. And times of great challenge mean choices of great consequence. So let me share with you a little about the choices we are making. The first choice was whether to let markets be left to themselves, to sort out the crisis on their own, or whether governments had to act. And our choice was clear. We nationalised Northern Rock, we took shares in British banks, and as a result, not one British saver has lost a single penny. That was the change that we chose, the change that benefits the hard-working majority and not the privileged few. And you know, we faced a second choice, a very big choice, between letting the recession run its course or stimulating the economy back to growth. And we made our choice: help for small businesses, targeted tax cuts for millions, and advancing our investment in roads, rail and education. That was the change we chose, and it was change that benefits the hard-working majority and not just a privileged few. And then we had a third choice between accepting unemployment as a price worth paying or saving jobs. And we in Britain made our choice. It's meant 500,000 jobs saved, and so conference, even in today's recession, there are 29 million men and women in work, 2 million more than when we came into power in 1997. And then we faced another big choice, the homeowner's choice, the mortgage choice, to do nothing as repossessions rose, or save the family homes that people have worked so hard to buy. 200,000 homeowners have been given direct government support to stay in their home. Now that was the change we chose, change that benefits the mainstream majority and not just a few. And then we faced another choice between going our own way or acting with other countries. And everybody knows the choice we made. We picked internationalism over isolationism, leading the G20 to a global deal that I can tell you will save 15 million jobs. Now, every government across the world made this choice to act. Every government across the G20 made the choice to act. Every government across Europe made the choice to act. Every major political party across the world chose to act. Only one party thought it was best to do nothing. Only one party with pretensions to government made the wrong choice: the Conservative Party of Britain. And they made the wrong choice on Northern Rock, the wrong choice on jobs and spending, the wrong choice on mortgage support, the wrong choice on working with Europe. The only thing about their policy that is consistent is that they are consistently wrong all the time. Now, the opposition might think that the test of a party is the quality of its marketing. But I say that the test for a government is the quality of its judgment. The Conservative Party were faced with the economic call of the century, and they called it wrong. And you know, I say that a party that makes the wrong choices on the most critical decisions it would have faced in government should not be given the chance to be in government at all. Now, what of the big choices that this country has to make now? To help young people into work, or to see, like the 1980s, a wasted generation? And I'll tell you the choice. We're making it. To reject every piece of Conservative advice. Instead, we will ensure school leavers get training, guarantee that young unemployed get work experience, expand university places, and increase the apprenticeships we need. And I'm sorry to say that by opposing all these measures, Conservative policy would callously and coldly return us to the lost generation and the cardboard cities of the 1980s. We say never again. That's the change we chose, the change that benefits the many, not. And every day we're facing the business choice to support our companies, from car manufacturers to the self-employed, or simply let great British businesses go to the wall. And we are making our choice. Labour believes in the businesses and enterprise of Britain. More than 200,000 agreements have been signed to give direct support to small businesses. That was the change we chose, change that benefits the enterprising backbone of Britain. And in opening up planning, in improving transport, in opting for nuclear energy, it is Labour that is the party of British business and British enterprise, and the Conservative Party has a policy simply to walk away. And the Conservatives were wrong on all these choices because they were wrong about something more fundamental still. Because what let the world down last autumn was not just bankrupt institutions, but a bankrupt ideology. What failed was the Conservative idea that markets always self-correct, but never self-destruct. What failed was the right-wing fundamentalism that says you can just leave everything to the markets and says that free markets are not just free, but values-free. You know, one day last October, the executive of a major bank told me that his bank needed only overnight finance and no long-term support from the government. The next day, I found that this bank was going under with debts that were among the biggest of any bank anywhere at any time in history. And you know, bankers had lost sight of basic British values. They'd lost sight of the values of acting responsibly and acting fairly. And these are the values that we, the hard-working majority, live by every day. It's like the small businessman who came to see me when his credit dried up at the bank. He was crying with the shame of missing some payments, but so responsible was he that he was determined that every penny he owed would be paid. Or like the woman who wrote to me and said that when we announced our decision to rescue IceSave and our family's savings as a result, it was the first night's sleep she'd had since the crisis started. When markets falter and banks fail, it's the jobs and the homes and the security of the squeezed middle that are hit the hardest. It's the hard-pressed, hard-working majority, the person with a trade, the small business owner, the self-employed. It's the classroom assistant, the worker in the shop, the builder on this site. It's the millions of people who do their best and their bit, and in return simply want their families to get on and not just get by. It's our Britain. It's a Britain that works best, not by reckless risk-taking, but by effort, merit, and hard work. It's a Britain that works not just by self-interest, but by self-discipline, self-improvement, and self-reliance. It's a Britain where we don't just care for ourselves, we also care for each other. And these are the values of fairness and responsibility that we teach our children, celebrate in our families, observe in our faiths, and honour in our communities. Now call them middle-class values, call them traditional working-class values, call them family values, call them virtues to live by, call them all of these. These are the values of the mainstream majority, the anchor of Britain's families, the best instincts of the British people, the soul of our party and the mission of our government. And I say this too. These are my values. The values I grew up with in an ordinary family, in an ordinary town. Like most families on middle and modest incomes, we believed in making the most of our talents. But we knew that no matter how hard we worked, free education was our only pathway to being the best we could be. Because like most parents, my parents could not easily afford to put me and my brothers through fee-paying schools. And I come from a family which, independent and self-reliant as it is, could not have kept going without the compassion and caring of the NHS. Because my parents could not easily have afforded to pay for operations on my eyes. So I come from a family for whom the NHS was quite simply the best insurance policy in the world. And let us say clearly, for us, the NHS has not been a 60-year-long mistake. It has been a 60-year-long liberation. And it's been those experiences and that background that has taught me that, yes, too much government can make people powerless, but too much government indifference can leave people powerless too. Government should never try to do what it cannot do, but it should never fail what it needs to do. And in a crisis, what the British people want to know is that their government will not pass by on the other side, but their government will be on their side. So, we will not allow those on modest and middle incomes to be buffeted about in a storm not of their making. And this is our choice, to toughen the rules on those who break the rules. Markets need what they cannot generate themselves. They need what the British people alone can bring to them. And I say to you today, markets need morals. So we will pass a new law to intervene on bankers' bonuses whenever they put the economy at risk, and any director of any of our banks who is negligent will be disqualified from holding any such post. Some people believe that the public will end up subsidising the bankers' mistakes. And so I tell you about our aims for the rescue of banks. The British people will not pay for the banks. No, the banks will pay back the British people. Now, that's what we need to do to rectify the problems of the past. But now it's also time to make the changes, the big changes, that are even more fundamental for a world that is being utterly transformed. In the uncharted waters we sail, the challenge of change demands nothing less than a new model for our economy, a new model for a more responsible society, and a new model for a more accountable politics. Staying with the status quo is not an option. The issue is not whether to change, but how. And always a party of restless and relentless reformers, the new mission for New Labour is to realise our passion for fairness and responsibility in these new global times. And as we rise to this challenge of change, so this coming election will not be a contest for a fourth-term Labour government. It will be for the first Labour government of this new global age. Now, our new economic model is founded on three guiding principles. That in future, finance must always be the servant of people and industry and never the master. That our future economy must be a green economy, and that we must realise all the talents of Britain if we're to lead and succeed. The best way finance can serve our country now is to help ensure that the inventions and innovations pioneered in Britain are developed and manufactured in Britain as well. So I tell you today, we will create a new National Investment Corporation to provide finance for growing manufacturing and other businesses. Our £1 billion innovation fund will back the creativity and inventions that are essential to the economy. And I want the Post Office to play a much bigger role bringing banking services back to the heart of people's communities. Our economic future must be green. You know, we're already global leaders in wind power, in green cars, in clean coal and carbon capture. And now we want to lead again, and we will create new designated low-carbon zones around the region of this country. And I say to you today, we will create over 250,000 new green British jobs. And every day we stall on a climate change deal, the people of the world are denied the chance to protect their world. And so I say, I will go to Copenhagen, and I will go with our British plan to secure a climate change deal and to secure it this year. And the new model for education in the 21st century. The biggest step we can take into the future is to unlock the talents of all young people. Let the new economy be one where social mobility is not held back. And in this new economy, there must be no cap on aspiration, no ceiling on opportunity, no limit on where your talents can take you. And so I can tell you that in the next 5 years, we cannot and will not cut support to our schools. We will not invest less, but will invest more. You know, our guarantee to parents is a ruthless determination to raise standards in every school. We will aggressively turn round underperforming schools so that your child will have a good local school no matter where you live. And our guarantee to all young people is that with millions of new opportunities, from apprenticeships to internships to a new class of modern technicians, we will discover, coach, develop and showcase the wealth of aspiration and talent that exists across every part of Britain. And to add today to the 100,000 new young people's jobs we're already creating, we can today offer, in partnership with the Federation of Small Businesses, 10,000 skilled internships, so that even in the midst of tough economic times, we're encouraging a whole new generation of young Britons to embrace ambition and British enterprise. And I can also announce that we will work with the Eden Project and Mayday Network to create the biggest group of green work placements we have ever done, up to 10,000 green job placements, so that our young people can make the most of the opportunities of the low-carbon economy and open it up for their abilities to flourish. And friends, let me talk bluntly. To pay for our schools, our hospitals, our police, and the changes we want to make, we have to make choices about tax and public spending. Let no one be in any doubt. As a result of Labour's economic management, Britain started this recession with the second lowest debt of any G7 economy. And just as we've always taken the hard and tough decisions on stability in the past, we will continue to apply the same rigour to our decisions in the future. Our deficit reduction plan to cut the deficit in half over 4 years will be made law in a new Fiscal Responsibility Act. And I can say today that every change we make, every single pledge we announce, comes with a price tag attached and a clear plan for how that cost will be met. For there are only two options on tax and spending, and only one of them benefits Britain's hard-working majority. One is reducing the deficit by cutting frontline service, and that is the Conservative approach. The other is getting the deficit down while maintaining and indeed improving frontline services, and that is the Labour approach. So, we will raise tax at the very top, cut costs, have realistic public sector pay settlements, make savings we know we can. In 2011, raise national insurance by 0.5%, and that will ensure that each and every year we protect and improve Britain's frontline public services. Now, you know our opponents would take a different approach. They want to cut spending now, so that means less money now for frontline services when people need them most. They want to cut inheritance tax for the 3,000 wealthiest estates, so that means even less money for frontline services. And they're against the measures we took to raise taxes, and so that means even less money for frontline services. These are not cuts they would make because they have to. These are spending cuts they are making because they want to. It's not inevitable. It's the change they choose. And when people say, faced with the constraints of the recession, can you make progress towards a fairer and more responsible Britain? Let us tell them we did, we can, and we will. In 1997, we held back spending, and people said there could be no progress. But we introduced the New Deal, Sure Start, the minimum wage, and paved the way for tax credits and new hospitals and schools. And in the last 12 years, we've already given teenagers educational maintenance allowance to help them stay on until 18. In the next 5 years, not just some, but all young people will be able to stay in education or training until the age of 18. We've already ensured that 3/4 of our GP practices are open out of hours. And in the next 5 years, we will ensure that every patient has the right to see a GP in the evening or at the weekend. And we've already lifted 900,000 pensioners out of poverty. And in the next 5 years, we will restore the earnings link for the basic state pension for all pensioners. And in the last 12 years, we created the first legal national minimum wage. And in every year of the next 5 years, I say to you, we will increase the minimum wage. The minimum wage was the dream of Neil Kinnock, and I'm privileged that he's with us today. It was the dream, too, of John Smith, whom we remember today. And it was one of the achievements of Tony Blair, and we thank him today. And when the minimum wage rises this month, it will be 60% higher than when it started. And I can say today that not just the minimum wage, but child benefit and child tax credits for families will continue to rise every year with Labour. for all those mums and dads who struggle to juggle work and home, I'm proud to announce today that by reforming the old tax reliefs, we will, by the end of the next Parliament, be able to give the parents of 250,000 two-year-olds free childcare for the first time. But I do think it's time to address a problem that for too long has gone unspoken: the number of children having children. It cannot be right for a girl of 16 to get pregnant, be given the keys to a council flat, and then be left on her own. From now on, all 16 and 70-year-old parents who get support from the taxpayer will be placed in a network of supervised homes. These shared homes will offer not just a roof over their heads, but a new start in life where they learn responsibility and how to raise their children properly. That's better for them, better for their babies, and better for us all in the long run. And I tell you, we won't ever shy away from taking difficult decisions on tough social questions. Because we have to be honest. It's not just bankers and politicians that have lost people's trust. Even though there is so much that is amazing about Britain, if you ask your neighbours or your workmates what they feel right now in this fast-changing world, they will probably talk about the sense of unease. The decent, hard-working majority feel the odds are stacked in favour of a minority, who will talk about their rights but never accept the responsibilities. And in this faster-changing, mobile world of communities where family breakdown is more common, where children are at risk, even on the internet, where elderly people are too often isolated in their communities, the new society we're creating must be explicit about the boundaries between what's right and what's wrong, and explicit too about the new responsibilities we demand of people in return for the rights they have. And I, like you, stand with the people who are sick and tired of others playing by different rules or by no rules at all. Most mums and dads do a great job, but there are those who let their kids run riot. And I'm not prepared to accept it as simply part of life, because there's also a way of intervening earlier to stop antisocial behaviour, slash welfare dependency and cut crime. Family intervention projects are a tough love, no-nonsense approach. Help for those who want to change, proper penalties for those who don't or won't. And I first saw this tough approach at work in Dundee, where a young single mother who got into trouble with drugs was at risk of her kids being taken into care, but within months she was going to college to get a decent job to look after the children she loved. Family intervention projects work. They change lives. They make our communities safer. They crack down on those who are going off the rails. And starting now and right across the next Parliament, every one of the 50,000 most chaotic families will be part of a family intervention project with clear rules and clear punishments if they don't stick to them. And we said that every time a young person breaches an ASBO, there will be an order not just on them, but an order on their parents. And if that is broken, they will pay the price. Because whenever and wherever there is antisocial behaviour, we will be there to fight it. We'll never allow teenage tearaways or anybody else to turn our town centres into no-go areas at night times. No one has yet cracked the whole problem of a youth drinking culture. We thought that extended hours would make our city centres easier to police, and in many areas it has. But it's not working in some places, and so we will give local authorities the power to ban 24-hour drinking throughout a community in the interest of local people. And let me say this also bluntly. When someone is found guilty of a serious crime caused by drinking, the drink banning order, which is available to the courts, should be imposed. And where there is persistent trouble from binge drinking, we will give local people the right to make pubs and clubs pay for cleaning up their neighbourhoods and making it safe. Neighbourhood policing is now a reality in every council ward in our country. But recent cases have shown it is time for a better service for the citizen. So if it's an emergency, you must get action in minutes. Where it's a neighbourhood priority, within the hour. And if it's a general but not urgent inquiry, no one should have to wait more than 48 hours for a reply or a visit. That's what I mean by public service personal to people's needs. And I can tell the British people that between now and Christmas, neighbourhood policing will focus in a more direct and intensive way on antisocial behaviour. Action squads will crack down in problem estates and crack down in the public spaces you want safe, and they will hold monthly beat meetings to consult you directly on your priorities for action. This is a new and more mobile world, and so we have to step up the protection of our borders against terrorism and illegal immigration. And it means we must take a tough approach to who gets to come to our country and who gets to stay. Tightening our points immigration system ensures that those who have the skills that can help Britain will be welcomed, and those who do not will be refused. And the ID card for foreign nationals is now working. But in the last 2 years, we have looked again at how we can give the best security to our British citizens whilst never undermining their liberties. We will reduce the information British citizens have to give for the new biometric passport to no more than that required for today's passport. And so, Conference, I can say also to you today, in the next Parliament, there will be no compulsory ID cards for British citizens. So I have been candid about the challenges we face, but we are also proud of our achievements and what makes this country we love so special. Britain, the four home nations, each unique, each with its own great contribution to make. And we will never allow separatists or narrow nationalists in Scotland or in Wales to sever the common bonds that bring our country together as one. And let me say to the people of Northern Ireland, we will give you every support to complete the last and yet unfinished stage of the peace process, which Tony Blair, to his great credit, started and which I want to see complete. The devolution of policing and justice to the people of Northern Ireland. We want to see it happen in the next few months. I want a Britain that is even more open to new ideas, even more creative, even more dynamic, leading the world. And let me talk today about how we will do more to support the great British institutions that best define this country. The first is the one I spoke about in detail on Sunday, when I talked about the mission of our brave men and women in Afghanistan. The heroism of our fighting men and women is unsurpassed. We owe them a debt we can never fully repay, and let us, on behalf of the British people, pay tribute to them and to their courage today. Our British Armed Forces truly are the finest in the world. And let us say to them, all British forces will always have all the equipment they need and the best support that we can give. And let me say to conference that Britain will work with President Obama and with 40 other countries to achieve peace and stability for the people of Afghanistan and to make sure that terrorism doesn't come to the streets of Britain again. We will work for peace and stability for the peoples of Israel and Palestine. And my efforts, like yours, will be on achieving a settlement. And we will work to end nuclear proliferation. And as I said last week, when I talked of the contribution that Britain can make, we will work as partners to end the world's nuclear arms race. And I say to Iran, as they face a crucial date this week, join the international community now, or face isolation. And let me say, what was once an aspiration, that we might spend 0.7% of our national income on international development aid, has become, with the Labour government, a promise, and it will in future become a law. We will pass legislation that the British government is obliged to raise spending on aid to the poorest countries to 0.7% of national income. Others may break their promises to the poorest of the world. With Labour, Britain never will. And there's also a huge debate around the world today about how countries can manage their healthcare. And countries from every continent look to our NHS for inspiration. And this summer, didn't we show them we love the NHS? And we can sometimes talk about the NHS purely in statistics, purely about the record numbers of doctors and nurses and operations and treatments with Labour. But it isn't just about the figures. It's about the individuals who get help. I got a letter from Diane, a mother from Rugby. She wrote to me saying that her life had been saved because the NHS used its extra investment to reduce the age for breast cancer screening. Before, she would have had to wait until the age of 50, and her surgeon told her that if she had, she'd probably be dead. But thanks to the changes we made, Diane was diagnosed early, treated early, and was back at work within 3 weeks. And when she wrote to me about us lowering the screening age, she said, "This may seem small in comparison to all the other issues you deal with. A small thing to do, but it probably saved my life." And so I say to you today, Labour fought for the NHS. You fought to save and invest in the NHS, and because you did, you are saving lives every day. You should be very, very proud of what you've achieved. If you've changed one life, you've changed the world. And because we know that investment in breast cancer screening works, and early investment saves lives, I'm proud to announce that we will go much further. We will finance a new right for cancer patients to have diagnostic tests carried out, completed, and with results, often same-day results, within 1 week of seeing your general practitioner. That is our early diagnosis guarantee. It builds on our current guarantee of only a 2 weeks wait to see a specialist. And so with 3 major steps forward, early diagnosis, early treatment, our historic investment in research for cancer cures, we in Britain can transform cancer care, and our ambition is no less than to beat cancer in this generation. And this is the change that we have chosen, because it's change that benefits not just the few who can pay, it benefits the mainstream majority. For a few days this summer, Sarah and I worked helping in a local hospice near our home. And I say now that the care and the compassion shown by volunteers and staff must be matched by greater support for this work of mercy. And in our times, there is a new challenge that no generation has really had to face before. We have an ageing society and new rightful demands for dignity and for support in old age. So we need social care for our elderly, which is not subject to a postcode lottery, but available to all, to the hard-working majority, and not just the few who can pay. So we will say in Labour's manifesto that social care for all is not a distant dream. We will say that to provide security for pensioners for generations to come, we will bring together the National Health Service and local care provision into a new national care service in Britain. That's the change we choose, and we can start straight away. Today, more and more people see their parents and grandparents suffering from conditions like Alzheimer's and dementia, and they see their dignity diminish. And for too many families, the challenge of coping with the heartbreak is made worse by the costs of getting support. The people who face the greatest burden are too often those on middle incomes who have savings which will last a year or two, but then they'll see their savings slip away. And the best starting point for our National Care Service is therefore to help the elderly to get the amenities to do what they want most to do, to receive care and to stay in their own homes as long as possible. So I can say today that for those with the highest needs, we will now offer in their own homes free personal care. It's a change, you know, that makes saving worthwhile, makes every family in this country more secure, and is a much-needed reassurance for the elderly and the children. This is the change that we choose, change that will benefit not just the few who can afford to pay, but the mainstream majority who can't. That's what we'll do. But a fair and responsible Britain must also be an accountable Britain, a nation not of powerful institutions, but powerful people. And just as I've said that the market needs morals, I also say today that politics always needs morals. Let me say that the vast, overwhelming majority of our Labour members of Parliament are in Parliament not out of self-interest, but to serve the public interest. And our new generation of parliamentary candidates want to join them, not to make a personal gain, but to make a difference for their communities. But there are some who let our country down. And never again should a Member of Parliament be more interested in the value of their allowances than the values of their constituents. And never again should it be said of any Member of Parliament that they are in it for what they can get. All of us should be in Parliament for what we can give. So where there is proven financial corruption by a Member of Parliament, And in cases where wrongdoing has been demonstrated but Parliament fails to act, we will give constituents the right to recall their Member of Parliament. And if we want a politics that is more open, more plural, more local, more democratic, then we will need also to make big changes, because the only way to secure and ensure that politics serves the people's values is to make all those who wield political power genuinely accountable to the people. There is now a stronger case than ever that MPs should be elected with the support of more than half of their voters, as they would be under the alternative voting system. So I can say today that in Labour's next manifesto, there will be a commitment for a referendum to be held early in the next Parliament on the alternative vote. And in this next year, we will abolish the hereditary principle in the House of Lords once and for all. And then, unlike our last election manifesto, we will ask for a clear mandate to make the House of Lords an accountable and democratic second chamber for the very first time in our history. Now, I've been honest with you about where we've got it right and where we've fallen short. And I'm determined to fight for change to benefit the mainstream majority. All that we have talked about today would simply not happen if the Conservatives were in power. The Conservative Party want people to believe that the ballot paper has an option marked change without consequence, that it's only a change of the team at the top. They've deliberately held their cards close to their chest. They've done their best to conceal their policies and their instincts, but the financial crisis forced them to show their hand, and they showed they had no hearts. And so I say to the British people, the election to come will not be about my future. It's about your future, your job, your home, your children's school, your hospital, your community. It's about the future of your country. And so when our opponents talk of change, ask yourself, is that change that will benefit my family or only a privileged few? Listen to what they say, but more importantly, demand to know what they would do. If you're a family that's feeling the pinch, don't take it from me. Just ask them the question. If you care about me, why is your first priority to give a £200,000 tax giveaway to each of the 3,000 wealthiest estates? If you're one of the millions of Britons who loves our NHS, don't take it from me, just ask them the question. If you care about us, why would you scrap the right to see a cancer specialist within 2 weeks? And if you're worried about crime, don't take it from me, just ask them the question. Why would you cut the Home Office budget by the equivalent of 3,500 police officers this year alone, and then make it harder for them to catch the most violent criminals using DNA evidence? And if you care about a proud Britain, don't take it from me, just ask them the question. Why would you put this country's prosperity and power at risk by placing Britain at the fringes of Europe rather than at its heart? And then ask them, how can you deliver change when you so clearly haven't changed your own party? Because there is a difference between the two parties. It's the difference between Conservatives who embrace pessimism and austerity and progressives like Labour who embrace prosperity and hope. And this is a timeless difference in our approach. It's between those like them, whose vision is limited to how things are, and those like us, who reach for the world that can be. And isn't this the story of Britain at its best, and the Labour Party at its best? That we are people who strive for and achieve great changes, even when others say it is impossible. They said a free national health service was impossible. Then they argued it was unworkable. Then they said it was unaffordable. But in the last 12 years, we have rebuilt it, and it is now quite simply, for the British people, irreplaceable. They told me that debt relief for the poorest was impossible. But we refused to give in, and now, thanks to debt relief and aid, 40 million more children across the world today are going to school. And even when they told us last year that a Great Depression was inevitable and the world could not come together, we did. And even when others said it was beyond our reach, the world came together. Maybe you think it's because I'm the guy who doesn't take no for an answer. And you're right, I don't. But it's really because I grew up in a family and in a party and in a country that believes no obstacle is so great that it can stop the onward march of fairness and of justice. And so I urge you, as the poet said, dream not small dreams, because they cannot change the world. Dream big dreams, and then watch our country soar. We can build a new economy which tames the old excesses. We can meet and master the challenges of an ageing society with a national care service. We can, in this generation, be the first to beat cancer. We can transform our politics. We can do all these things and more if we think big and then fight hard. Since 1997, Labour has given this country back its future, and we are not done yet. We love this country, and we have shown over the years that if you aim high, you can lift not just yourself, but your country too. And there is nothing in life which is inevitable. It is about the change you choose. And so I say to you now, never stop believing in the good sense of the British people. Never stop believing we can move forward to a fairer, more responsible, more prosperous Britain. Never stop believing we can make a Britain equal to its best ideals. Never, never stop believing. And because the task is difficult, the triumph will be even greater. Now is not the time to give in, but to reach inside ourselves for the strength of our convictions, because we are the Labour Party, and our guiding duty is to stand, to fight, to win, and to serve.
Okay, good morning, delegates, and welcome to this session of conference. First, I'll ask Margaret Wheeler to present the Conference Arrangements Committee report, Report 3 on the Green Paper, which you should have picked coming in. Margaret?
Good morning, Conference. I'm pleased to present to you CAC Report 3. Yesterday I reported that the